So here I am in front of my laptop with my little portable microphone recording from a hotel room, and I thought to myself, you know what, it would be a great opportunity to go and browse Reddit. And I know that's never a good option. Reddit, social media, it is filled with some of the most negative, Nancy, toxic human beings anywhere. Quick shout out to my patrons over on Patreon, by the way. Since this channel is not monetized, every patron counts. So there I was browsing Reddit when I happened upon threads that were specifically comparing Genshin Impact to Tower Fantasy. And my initial thought is, you can't really compare those two games. One is an anime RPG with very limited multiplayer functionality. The other is an anime MMORPG with a lot of multiplayer functionality. And in the comment section of 3 different Reddit threads made over the course of the last couple weeks alone, people weren't comparing the two games. Comparing them would mean that you put the combat, put the graphical style, put the content that is available up against one another. Rather, what these people were doing were they were taking the game, let's say for instance Genshin Impact, and saying that absolutely nothing about Tower of Fantasy comes even close to comparing to Genshin Impact. Now, I happened across various different Reddit threads. I think I was bored. I looked about 3, maybe 4 of them up on Reddit, and then after reading through a few of them, I started Googling around because I was curious what people were saying on the MiHoYo forums, what people were saying across social media. And man, the amount of people that are looking at Tower Fantasy and that are crucifying the game due to a few similarities to Genshin Impact is incredible. These people are so upset with Tower of Fantasy, not because Tower of Fantasy is a bad game. They're not upset with the game because of it as a game. They are upset with it because they are fearful that it is going to take away from Genshin, that some Genshin players might actually like Tower of Fantasy. And as someone who has played probably upwards of 600-700 hours of Genshin Impact in the last few months, as someone that has spent over $1,000 in Genshin Impact over the last few months, and as someone who has put in roughly 100 hours into Tower Fantasy over the course of its recent global closed beta, I can say with utmost certainty that A, the game is almost nothing like Genshin Impact, and B, the players that are going to be interested in Tower Fantasy are mostly not Genshin players. Genshin players are going to jump into Tower Fantasy because they're curious, because it looks similar, because they think it's going to play similar, and it's going to provide them a similar experience. But after playing it for a few hours, they're going to realize that it is a completely different game. So these Genshin players, they are upset that Genshin might lose a percentage of its player base, a few percent total, maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of players in the short term are going to transition over to Tower Fantasy. But just because people are bored, just because they have nothing to do right now or when Tower Fantasy launches, is not a bad thing. You can play 2 games concurrently. These 2 games can both coexist with one another without necessarily inhibiting one another. Who even logs into Genshin right now and plays for 3-4 hours straight? You log into Genshin, you play for like 20 minutes, and then you log out. The same thing is going to apply to Tower Fantasy. You're capable of doing this for more than one game. People should not be getting upset over this. It is actually ridiculous that people are getting angry at Tower Fantasy. Again, not because it's a bad game, not because Hada or whoever's publishing it is publishing it poorly, not because it's being developed poorly, but just because they're scared that Genshin might lose a few percent of players that you're never going to meet anyway.